following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hi, welcome to The Ring and All Other Sports. My name is Leo Connors and I'm your host. And tonight I got a very special guest and I have a special co-host. My guest is Delilah Hayden.
Hello.
Delilah, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And my co-host is Maverick Wild.
I'm not shaking your hand. I know where it's been.
Who has an open invitation. and he's taking advantage of it. Let's get right into it, Delilah. You know, a lot of people are watching because they think there's going to be all kinds of stuff, but this is a friendly, fun conversation.
Right.
Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Newton, Massachusetts, and I moved when I was little to West Roxbury, where I still currently reside with my parents.
Great. When did you first see pro wrestling?
So, it's actually really funny. The first time I ever watched pro wrestling was after I went and saw The Mummy Returns.
Okay.
And I saw The Rock as the Scorpion King, and for some reason I was just like, who is that guy? And then it's like The Rock. I'm like, that's not a name. Even though as a child, I'm like, that's not a name.
Right.
So I look him up, and like as the limited version of internet that existed when I was a kid, and I was like, oh, he's a professional wrestler. You know, I've heard about wrestling. Why don't I watch it? And it was the program, it was like post-Royal Rumble, going into WrestleMania 18 when The Rock was taking on Hogan. All of a sudden, just that storyline sucked me in. And then the whole, Triple H and Stephanie are going to renew their vows on Monday night. I'm like, wait, what? And that was it.
Wow. Nice. When did you go to your first show?
So the first show I actually went to was an independent show after I started watching wrestling all the time. Like my dad would tape it for me because it would go way past my bedtime.
Boy, that must have been a big letdown.
It was fine. But it was called WWA, World Wrestling Alliance, I believe.
Sparta? WWA?
Probably the Mike Sparta version, yes.
Okay. Yeah, this one, first one I went to was out of Watertown, probably a room not too much bigger than this studio. Right. And there wasn't that many people in the audience, maybe 50 of us. And I was with both my parents and my little sister. Yeah. And I met Killer Kowalski for the first time. And I have an autographed picture of him hanging on my wall to me and my sister. I met Virgil, Short Sleeve Sampson, who I ended up reconnecting with later when I did start to
How
wrestle.
much did Virgil charge you for your autograph?
I was 10. I don't know what he charged my parents.
50 then. Okay.
But it's a little Polaroid of him with me. He's got me in a headlock, and he picked up my little sister for like a slam. Short Sleeve Sampson picked both of us up too, and I think that's kind of why he's like, hey, what, you're a little guy picking up the little girls. Right. And in the main, I didn't know who anybody was. I met Hueva Guerrera, and I saw Magnum and Vinny, and I feel bad because I butcher his last name every time I say it. Marselia.
I usually butcher
close.
it too, but
he and Magnum was like the first time I saw their match together. I believe I would see it again like years later.
Right.
And I think they did the circuit. It was always great. And at the end, Balls Mahoney comes out and just beats him up. This all he did the whole show. Came in, swung a chair. Everyone starts chanting, "He's got the biggest balls of them all."
His music.
And little 10, 11-year-old me was like, I don't know who these people are.
Right.
But all I knew is it was entertaining, it was fun, and in my mind, the WWE was the only thing that existed and owned, WWF then owned everything, and maybe they just rented people out to smaller halls, like maybe the people who weren't as popular. Yeah. Except for Killer Kowalski, who had a, again, little kid me had a conversation with him. He's like, oh yeah, and I train these people and these. I'm like, I was like, oh, you're a teacher. I was a child.
He was a great guy, though. Yes. I mean, he was so nice to everyone. I must have met him 15, 20 times at shows, and he just was so nice. Always so welcoming to anyone that would go up to him, It was really cool. Tell us about your first match.
So my first match, I originally started being a manager, and I didn't know if I wanted to get in because I was a little nervous. My first match was a 3-on-3 mixed tag match because when I first started and I started in WWE, there were no gender boundaries. It also didn't help that there really weren't any girls. Right. And I was nervous because one of the moves that the guy did was a jumping stomp from the second rope. And here I am thinking he's about to jump on me and crush my ribs. And he's like, no, I jump, I partly land, and I roll with it. It looks more devastating. But still, I was nervous, but it ended up going perfectly fine. My team got the win. I was like, oh, Yay!
Now, was that for WAW? Okay. We're going to be talking about a lot about that because there's been a lot of controversy over the last few days. Besides WAW, what other companies did you work for? Like, maybe, how long did you first, let me rephrase this. You wrestled for WAW first, but how long before you wrestled for any other companies?
Up until this past June.
Okay.
But as far as other companies, I started traveling in about 2015.
Okay. And what were the companies?
So I started out in this company, Nova Promotions. It was run by Adam Santos. He was a promoter out of Maine, but he was running out of the first chop shop in Rhode Island.
Okay.
And it was through a bunch of people. That's actually where I met Derek Simonetti, and I met the SOG for the first time.
Yeah.
I met like
Ronnie.
all those people.
Yeah.
And then one person in the chop shop saw me. Was like, "Hey, there's this other promotion that runs in here called MAW. You should come try out for them." And a guy gave me a match to face Derek Conway because it was like, "Okay, I'll bring my own opponent,
Right.
show you what I can do." And he's like, "Oh, all right, I like you." I was the first girl there. Like they're like, "We're gonna keep you." Derek Simonetti was finishing up his thing, Project Zero Wrestling, and had us come. Derek Conway, Kevin Giles, and I come down for. Just a fun match. Like, he didn't really post those things. It was more like just a bunch of boys get together, have fun. You know what it's kind of supposed to be?
Right.
Like having fun. And he liked what he saw so much that all of a sudden, like, he's told this story into the ground, how much, like, Derek Conway's kind of the reason proving ground exists. And then, like, seeing all that happen, then all of a sudden, I brought other people in. All of a sudden, Conway brought other people in. They brought people in, like Dick Lane, Sean Leader. Just, it kept growing.
Yeah.
And now it's become what it is today on Level 5, which is on Saturday.
Right. And that is...
It's in Peabody, Mass.
So is he running the same place he ran last time he ran
Yes.
in
Gotta
Peabody?
be the Elks.
Yes.
He had a great crowd
It
that
was
day because I saw like
huge
some
turnout.
video of it and pictures. There was a lot of people there.
Yeah.
And ran against a guy that was running there for a long time, and he totally doubled. I'm sorry, but doubled the attendance from what I heard.
Right. I didn't know much about the other show. Like, let's see what else. And then after those happened, then I went into House of Bricks for the first time, and I've been an on and off regular there. It's sometimes conflicted because WW was my home promotion. Then slowly I became like more of a role in it.
Yeah.
I had to prioritize as much as a lot of people didn't like that, and they're like, "You should be going where this is. You have that ability. Why don't you go?" And I was like, this is my home. This is where I'm starting. This is what I'm trying to elevate and get rid of the negative stereotype that had been there that people before me had caused.
Right.
So I was like, I want to fix this. House of Bricks. Then I went to NCW, picked me up primarily to manage and to be Dick Lane's fiance.
Yep.
And then we had a wedding that Steve the Turtle ruined. And that Steve the Turtle became the uncontrolled and basically became Pennywise in a black cowboy hat and forced choke slam me in our wedding dress and everything. Everything went everywhere. I've worked the APW Homecoming, Yankee Homecoming a few times. I think it might have been just twice. Last time I faced Widow Belmont, who's one of my favorite opponents to work with.
Great.
But I feel like that's the one thing that every female in this area says when it comes to who do you want to work with, like who's top tier, if you will. It's always Kathy Belmont.
She was very raw at one point. She wasn't very good, and she worked very, very, very hard. And she would tell you herself, not a talented athlete.
She still says that, and I wish she would give herself more
I do
credit.
hear that she does say that. You're right. She said it on her Hall of Fame
But
speech.
I've always
I heard that.
I've always thought I was never much of an athlete, but hard work just makes up for a lot of stuff. It really
true.
does.
Right.
And she
Very
worked
true.
hard.
Yeah, she really is. She's one of the best female wrestlers out there around here for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into some fan questions, okay?
Sure.
Sonny Goodspeed says, my question, by the way, is I want to play outside linebacker for the Patriots, not for a living or anything, 1 or 2 games. How do you suggest I go about achieving that?
I would call Bill Belichick.
Yeah, maybe Brady, right?
Brady.
One of those guys?
He's got a clothing line now, a
being
store on Newbury Street. I saw
Does
the
he
other
really?
day.
Tom Brady does?
Yeah, he has a clothing line.
Being a
apparently.
co-star on a cooking show probably doesn't help to be
Yeah,
an
I don't
outside
think it's...
linebacker.
Did you see what he did on one of the episodes?
No, I
In
didn't.
the middle of the episode, he said, I got to go pee. Took the microphone off and left. I'm like, where are you going? I guess he had been drinking a lot of water that day.
Oh.
He's doing some type of diet thing or whatever. I don't know what it
Probably
was,
like
but
a
he had to go
detox?
pee really
Well,
bad.
at least he left.
It was hilarious, though. All right. Okay. I want to get into, before I get into the fan questions, let's do the topic that pretty much everybody wants to hear, okay?
Yes.
A while ago, you had a post out there, and you had mentioned that you didn't want to do this for a living.
Correct.
and you. Why don't you?
So it
Yes,
got
it'd be better that
misconstrued
way.
as,
Yes.
and I don't mind saying it because it's exactly what happened. Todd Sopel's never liked me.
Right.
I have had very few issues with him professionally.
I'm not a fan of his either.
Yeah,
so
on a
just so you know.
personal level, I've had a lot of, no, that's fine. I don't know many people who are. People
Right.
who are okay with him professionally, which is fine. You
Right.
can, oh,
Yeah, he likes him.
oh, I thought you raising your hand like
No,
that.
no, I
was
get
like,
along
oh,
with
okay.
Todd very well,
He does.
actually.
He gets along with him, and that's fine.
Yeah, like you can get along with people professionally and still
Right.
not care for who they are as a person. You do your job at the end of the day. You
Yeah.
may not like everyone you work with, but at the end of the day, like if someone's, in his case, when he was a promoter, like if that's your manager, you do what they ask.
Right.
If they're your coworker, you do what you do to get the job done, no matter how you feel.
Right.
So I responded to the post because there was an app going around called Profoundly, and it was people could submit anonymous stuff,
Yes.
and
you
that's
poor
where,
girl.
oh my God, the
Yeah.
amount of things people would say to me on there. But I answered them every time because I was like, all right, I'm going to let you figure out if I'm telling the truth or not.
Right.
And what happened was he interpreted what I said as that I was saying I was too good for training, which is in no way, shape, or form true. I would never say that I'm too good for training. I understand that I've never formally enrolled in wrestling school.
Right.
Because at the time when I started, I had just turned 18. I was working 2 part-time jobs and putting myself through college.
Right.
And the only thing I had was WAW on Saturdays. And I initially, I'm not going to lie, I thought it was just going to be like a little passing thing. And then one
Right.
time, I'd stop and whatnot. Because again, I was like, oh, I'll do this for a while, I'll graduate. And then all of a sudden I had more and more interest in it. And so we had some guys who were wrestlers in the area, Rob Vituli,
Yeah.
Mike Canning, who was Enigma. They were the sideshow together. And then I feel bad because I forget his last name. His name's Sean, and he was a giant, tall man. He worked under the name Stalker.
Okay.
And Rob Tuttle was coming up to like referee and help out.
Yep.
So I've known Tuttle since 2008.
Rob's a great guy.
Sorry, 2008. And picked us up one day. It was like me, my boyfriend at the time, and 2 other guys in WAW. And they brought us to this place it was either Malden or Everett. It was like the 3rd floor of the building, tiny room. Again, not much bigger than here. It was
Right.
a short ring to the ground, and ran drills with us for a while. He's like, you guys want to get better? We can only help you do so much through our years of experience.
Right.
But if you want to do this for a living, this is how you go. This is how you get to like chaotic level promotions. And I was like, okay. But then with my schedule, I couldn't enroll all the time. I didn't have money because again, I was 18, going through the college years, working. And I would pick up seminars when I could. Like
That's good.
my favorite one to this day has been the Bob Evans seminar.
Yeah.
Bob is a wonderful person. He's the first person to ever tell me there's nothing wrong with doing this and staying at one level.
Right.
Like there's nothing wrong with doing this for a hobby. There's nothing wrong with doing this for fun because that's what wrestling's supposed to be.
Right.
If you want to be that person to make it to the WWE, this is how you have to do it. It's exactly what I would tell anybody who wants to go to the WWE.
Right.
Like, all right, here's all the schools in the area. Here's places you can go.
Yep.
But I guess at the same time, like, I've never lied about where I came from. I never hid that I was from WWE. And I had people tell me to do that. When I started getting more bookings and then when I started going to like Elkmania promotions, I went to Maine. They're like, don't say where you came from. I'm like, why am I going to lie about that? If you do one YouTube search about me, that's where
gonna come
90%
up.
of my content is.
Yeah, you could have got away with that in the 80s and 90s, but I mean,
But not today. Exactly.
you know,
And I gotta,
as soon as it's on-
I gotta commend
as
you
soon
for
as it's on
that because
tape.
honestly, like you could have done that and said it, but people would have found out. So that's
Right.
good that you didn't do that.
So yeah, and it's not always where you start; it's where you end up. And
Right.
Even if that's just you just want to do it on the side. I never wanted to make a living at it.
Right.
Or, well, a couple of times, and then something would go wrong, and I said, "Screw this! I don't want to make a living at this anymore." So,
Yep.
but but it's fine to be at that level. It's just when people see statements like however misconstrued it was,
Right.
I don't if they read as I don't think I need training, I'm too good. No, that's going to set people off because
Right.
there's a lot of people who are involved in this that have put so much time and so much energy,
Yes.
and even if they're themselves are just weekend warriors, they put a lot of effort into it. And
Oh, yeah.
if they hear something like that, it kind of goes straight up their backside. So
Yeah, and I'm not even in the business, and I read it, and you can read things 2 ways
Yeah.
whenever you read something, and I read it the harsh way.
yeah,
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And as a fan, I was turned off by it. But then you reached out and said, if you want to talk to me, and we talked right away.
But then again,
that
you're
day.
telling me it came out on that Profoundly thing. And I remember I didn't even know you, and I'm watching some of those horrible things be put on
Yeah.
this
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, that
I'm
was
like,
ridiculous.
I didn't know you. And I'm like, shut your mouth. What is wrong with you people?
Right.
Right. I was like, all right, if you're gonna send this to me anonymously, I'll entertain it. If I'm giving you the true answer or not,
Yep.
that's up to you. Like,
Right.
and like I said, like I do seminars when I can. I've never claimed to be the best. But I'm also one of those people who I'm a very hands-on person. I'm a very learn in the moment person. I think it was either a match I had, I believe it was a showcase, one of the first matches I had there. There was some kind of a botch.
Yeah.
And it was something like I had never done, but I was told by the vet planning the match, oh, you should do this. No, you're gonna do this. And I'm like, even though I was like, all right, wait, I'm never. And it looked okay when the camera came out, but I knew during the match it didn't look as well. I learned 10 times faster messing up in front of a live audience that I can't take this back compared to doing it in a training where the trainer would just go, get up and do it again.
Right.
It's like, you can do it, but being in front of a live audience is like, you can't prepare for that.
Well, I was a lot of my training came through a guy named Bruiser Costa, who wrestles Lobsterman in this area, and he spent a lot of time in the Vancouver territory.
Yep.
And, yeah, I know I'm old, but anyways, so
I'm old.
He used to. What was my point? Oh, yeah, he used to differentiate between gym wrestlers and show wrestlers.
Right.
Show wrestlers went out and learned on shows, cut their teeth, and didn't make and even if they made a mistake, they went on with it.
Right.
Well, gym wrestlers, they could be perfect in the gym, and sometimes they just couldn't get it done in front of a crowd. And which is the important part.
Right. And that's exactly like where my mentality also came from. Like my dad was my softball coach growing up for a bit, and same thing. I played hockey in high school, and I was the only girl on the team.
Sport.
I was the only girl on the team. It's mine too, and it was partly I wanted to do it in high school because the school would pay for me to do it compared to doing a town league. You have to pay for it. I had to buy my own equipment, but I didn't know how to skate. Walked right out.
Oh yeah.
My coach is like, not only do I have a girl now, she doesn't know how to skate. What am I going to do? And I learned because I had no choice. If I wanted to get in that game, so equivalent to wrestling, if I wanted to get a spot, I had to prove that I could do something. I don't need to go in anywhere and win. Probably 90% of all my bookings still to this day are to put someone over. And that's fine.
Right.
I can't understand people getting so wrapped up in needing to win titles. It's fake. It's a show. This is supposed to be fun, and that's what I was finding the last few years of like people get so wrapped up in everything. And I can't say there aren't times where I thought I should have won and I didn't.
Right.
But it's fun. That's supposed to be what wrestling is. It's
People
a
who need to
character.
win all the time intrinsically have something wrong with their mentality. I'm sorry, they do.
I mean, the Sandman even
and
says.
I don't use the fake word because but it is.
Yeah, I like to use choreographed. You know what I mean?
I don't even like that. I'm old, but
So what is, like, as a veteran, what would a word that wouldn't offend you then? Seriously, that would be good to know.
Well, it's old fashioned. It's carny. It's a work.
Work.
It's a work. And sometimes terms like that get crapped on these days. But it's just how it was termed, and
Yep.
and then some guys older than me would go, oh my God, he's giving away the secrets. It's like, no, the secrets are out.
That's what the internet's for.
Okay.
Yep.
The secrets are out.
All right, so I think we touched on that enough. Let's move on.
Yes.
Okay. More fan questions.
All right.
Matthew McGee. Is he freight train?
Yes, he
Okay.
is. He is a victory.
What 3 male or female indie wrestlers would you like to go against?
So the male ones, I was such a conflict because there's so many.
Right.
Currently up there on my list is, and I'm pretty sure I can say this because it's the moniker, the Masshole Mike McCarthy.
Congratulations, by
Yes,
the way,
congratulations.
on your wedding, Joey Kilmartin. Congratulations to you too. I'm sorry, I had to do it.
No, like that was like when I heard that on Facebook, I was like, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Since I've met him, like I remembered seeing him when I was watching shows locally. Like the first thing I was going to watch more independent shows.
Right.
He was someone I was like, I like him. He can be a good guy or a bad guy. And a lot of people, like I've learned, like when like going to like the seminars, if you do local based gimmicks, it's kind of hard to get over when you go to other parts of the country.
Right.
But one thing people know about Massachusetts is we are massholes.
Yep.
You can go to anywhere in the country and get that gimmick over. And to me, like I'm a huge character person. Characters are what get me, like to
Yep.
get invested.
That's what got me into wrestling. The
Yeah,
characters.
like
it was.
there are people who are like millions and millions time more athletic than I
Right.
am, and that's perfectly fine, and they can do backflips and all this stuff like Ricochet, and I'm like, that's great. Like, don't get me wrong, amazing.
Right.
But what else? Like I joke all the time. My friends joke with me, and I can't say it anymore because he just got married recently. That my husband is Finn Balor.
Okay.
That you remove the demon though, and he's kind of just a guy. Don't get me wrong.
There's a million guys like him. You're
There's
right.
a million guys like,
Yep.
but you take the demon, something
Right.
that even if he wasn't that great a wrestler,
Yep.
it covers for it.
Right.
Like characters get people invested.
Yep.
So that's where Mike McCarthy comes for me. Then on the other end of the spectrum, for my next example, not so much a character, but he himself, I feel like, is a bit of a persona, is Riot Kellen Thomas.
Okay.
Like
Yep.
something about Kellen I've always liked, and I don't think it's just because he's such a sweetheart to me, and so is Mike McCarthy outside of
Right.
the ring, and that makes me like comfortable to work with you. But like I see what he can do in the ring, and I'm like, this guy is
He
great.
is talented.
And then there's so many like.
There are.
There are, like,
way
I have
more
a
males
list.
than females. That's for sure.
And that's the other thing, like,
Right.
and then I guess this one, I don't know if this one counts as both, because this is a weird, I'll explain in a
Okay.
minute. There is a guy who primarily, I believe, wrestles out of Japan. I don't think he wrestles in the America very much. And his name is Lady Beard. He's a big,
never heard of Lady
imagine a big Josh Briggs looking guy,
Okay.
like build, but then he acts all anime-like, and he'll wear little frilly dresses. And
Right.
it's kind of a joke gimmick, but
Yep.
he's kind of like what my gimmick is very similar to. And I was like, I want to have such a comedy match with this guy.
Right. So he's more of a comedy wrestler than
Yeah,
Okay.
especially
which
like,
is fine. I love
especially in
comedy
Japan.
matches
Like
sometimes.
Japan's not on the same, I guess, political correctness
Right,
level that
right.
America is. Where like being a gay guy over in Japan, that's a gimmick.
Right. Right.
And then this guy's over there and he's wearing like frilly little dresses. He puts his hair in pigtails and he sits there and acts all cute.
Right.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I want to work with you, or I want to just meet you.
Right.
I can just talk to you.
Yep.
It is strange how wrestling was so slow to adopt homosexuals as
Yes.
as
Even though there was so many in the business that no
in
one
the
knew.
business, but
Oh,
it was outwardly it was just something made fun of.
Right.
And
Right.
to be frank with you, I was guilty. I might have told you the story when the
Probably
one
did.
time I worked for Ring of Honor.
Okay.
I remember everything.
I was there.
Everything looked so backwards to me
Right.
because they did things so differently.
Yep.
And and there was Low Key who was kicking a wall
Yeah.
as hard as he could to warm up, but I remember seeing the Christopher Street connection.
Yes.
And I was like, now what are these guys? Baby faces? And they were.
Yep, they were.
And it was such culture shock. That was in what year was that? Good Lord.
2002.
2002.
I know exactly when it was
That's
because
not
that
even-
was how I started catering.
It's not
the
even
next
that long
show.
ago if you
And
think
even
about it.
But even then, after that, most places used homosexuality as a divisive thing on screen. It's just and it's not even completely flipped yet. It really isn't. It's so strange.
It freaked me out because I found out that they weren't gay, but
Mm-hmm.
yet they were tongue kissing each other in the ring. And that's what I was like, whoa,
I don't know if that's
what I
more
mean? What's going on here? Like, okay, you're not gay. That's fine, even if you are gay. That don't bother me. But when I found out they weren't gay and then I watched them kiss, I was like, this is mess. This is weird. I didn't understand it.
Well, me and
It's
you
like
were
They
right.
were talented, though.
Yes,
They
they were.
really were.
It's like the Billy and Chuck wedding thing. It was literally kind of like, hey, let's pay attention to this. And even
Yeah.
Billy's like, wait,
That was
dude, we're not
crazy.
actually doing this. It's just for ratings. It's
Yeah.
like,
They did a good job with that, too. They really
They did, but you know what? They didn't go all the way with it. They
no,
really
they should have.
didn't.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
they
they
get
ended it too quick.
they get a lot. They get a lot of heat over that
Right.
too, and as well they should have actually.
Right. They're both big guys, too. I mean,
Yeah.
Chuck was bigger than Billy Gunn, and Billy Gunn's like 6'5".
Yeah.
You know? It's crazy.
By the way, this is what I do. I hijack questions.
Yeah.
no, you're
And it would
fine.
just go completely off the rails.
Just so-
You'll notice we've already blown through almost 30 minutes.
He has an open invitation. That's,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
To screw
Open
everything up,
invitation,
yeah.
and this is why he's
Yes.
here. Okay, so let's go to Tony Spencer. What are your thoughts on intergender matches? I want to do it right.
I
so
laugh
you
at him all the
say-
time too.
no, I love Tony. I have known Tony for a really long time. I actually met Tony at an anime convention.
Right.
And then I
He said
happened to
that.
mention my name, and he goes, I know who you are. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? Like, I sometimes at conventions, and it's a bit now of a spoiler for anybody who meets me who hasn't met me before, I don't use my real name. Like,
Okay.
I tell people like a different name because it's just,
Every time a different name.
no. It's,
all
always,
right.
it's always
I was
going to be
gonna
Delilah.
like, that's
but
even
in the
funnier.
end, it's ultimately always Delilah.
Yeah.
And sorry for anybody watching this who didn't realize my actual name isn't Delilah.
Right.
And
You don't have to
it's
tell
but
them
it's
if you don't want to
because
either.
no, it's fine.
Well,
I'm
my
not
real
gonna say-
name's Maverick.
Yes, that's
But but that's one thing. Like I know a lot of wrestlers still take one part of their name, but they'll change one part of it. Derek Conway's a perfect example. That's not Derek's not his first name, but Conway's his last name. But you know what? It's a wrestling sounding name.
Yeah.
And he's somewhere now watching at me going, oh, why are you talking about it? But just like the wrestling world, where I get a lot of like friend requests from just like fans or people I'm not okay with, or it's not okay with. I don't know you on a normal basis. They try to friend request me, fans try to friend request my personal page because they find me through other wrestlers who add everybody. I'm like, yup, go over here. Same thing with the convention scene. You'll get a lot of people who are just like, oh, I see you, I see you tagged in a picture. I'm gonna friend request you.
Right.
And I happen to mention, and Tony knew that name. And I'm like, he goes, oh, and at the time this was the case, he's like, I wrestle with Todd Sopel. I was like, I know that name.
Right.
And he was like, okay, I guess at the time, like, I didn't have any issues with Todd at that point, but I was like, okay, I knew Todd started in WWE like years ago, but he was no longer there, and there was some kind of issue that happened, but it was like, it was none of my business at the time. So I was like, all right, cool. And then Tony, I just started talking from there. Then I found out he was friends with Simonetti.
Yeah.
And it just evolved from there. And Tony's one of the people I go to like all the time. Like I love working with Tony.
Nice.
His only complaint to me, he's like, oh, the goose eggs you lay in though. And I'm like, he's like, but it's okay. I would rather have it look real.
You love working with that clown? I trained that clown.
Him.
He told me.
He trained him. I was waiting for my chance. Was going to be like, you trained Tony.
He told me the first thing I should say to you is, how about that Tony Spencer sucking, huh?
I figured it would be, how about that Maverick? You set me on fire twice.
Oh, y'all, he told me to ask about the fire story.
This is the perfect time to ask Mav's question. Okay, how do you deal with the creepers?
Yeah, in fact, you're going into the conventions and stuff. I even have one. Now it's almost two parts. One, how do you deal with the creeps?
Yeah.
And then two, is there a creep factor with these conventions? Well,
There is.
I'm sure there has to.
So
Yeah.
people like, I realize people are trying to fix the nerd stereotype a lot and be like, oh, nerds aren't always the people who live in their basement or never
Right.
come out except for these things. Like, yes, they are. They're not everybody. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Not everybody. And it's not just guys.
Yep.
There are girls too. So I
Right.
can't say it's just males. There's females too. I've probably been harassed by just as many females as I
Right.
have males.
and
And it's fine if they're trying to like hit on me, and it's like like especially when it's come to the girls, like I don't swing, like thank you, but like I'll just kind of I'm that person who sits
See,
there and smiles and nods. and-
Now, as a male wrestler, the only time I ever got it was when I was about 120 pounds lighter, and I would get these occasionally weird hit-ups, and you remember the social media wasn't
Right.
what it was.
Yeah, it was very bad at the beginning.
But they'd still find me, and I was like, and it was just, each their own, but it was completely off-putting, and I didn't know how to handle it at all, but at least I only had to handle it once every 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's got to be
My
almost
own daughter at one
daily
point
thing.
Yeah.
expressed some interest in getting into professional wrestling, and I went,
Yeah.
Dad mode, put it
I
down.
wouldn't want.
Put it
I
down.
love wrestling, but I wouldn't want my youngest, to be in wrestling, or my older daughter. But she's 33. She never really was into wrestling at all.
No.
Sarah at least liked it. A
I
little.
wouldn't mind it as much now. It's
Right.
changed enough, but
Yeah.
it's still,
There's still room for concern.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Especially with Tony's question, when it comes to intergender matches, there are
Right.
people like there are very few people in the New England area that I'll say no to. There's really only like 2
Yeah.
that I will straight out say I will not work with this person. I try not to be that person because I
Right.
wouldn't want someone to be that way with me if they've never worked
Yep.
with me. But if there are people that you've watched them physically like hurt people and you're
Right.
just like, no, thank you.
Don't worry, we all have our own list.
But like, there are intergender people. Like, I can't say I've never been groped during a match. That'd be a lie. I don't know if people did it on purpose or an
Right.
accident, but
Right.
it's sometimes hard to work around. Like, if you know that you need to go behind someone to walk up, and you by chance skim, what am I gonna say?
Right. No,
am
I
I
hear
gonna
ya.
stop the middle of the match and
Now,
start
did
a
it-
fight over it?
Not to make this really sensitive, but did it happen intentionally at any point?
I think there were some times it did
Really?
happen intentionally, and I didn't say anything. I
Yep.
just, luckily, it was only the one match, and I should have at the time, but I was maybe, when it happened, maybe 20.
I've
So, I was
I've
still
never
young.
been into intergender matches. I've never
Right.
really liked them too much. And when I ran my own wrestling school, I was very cautious when I was training women.
Right.
And in fact, I remember I would never train anybody under 18. I broke the rule once, and it was a girl, and I made her mother come to every training practice so she would see nothing was going.
Right.
You know.
No,
I
it's
just- I
perfect.
didn't
I
want-
That's
understand.
smart.
It's
Covering
understandable.
your ass.
Yeah, I just,
know?
and yeah, it just, Yeah, I just, you know.
Yeah. I've just been okay with them because that's all I've pretty much ever known. I've rarely worked with girls. And I have worked with some, like I said, I worked with Kathy, I worked with Izana, I've worked with Vanity Vixen, and like there's a few, and like, you know, there's more than that, but there are some times where I've had matches with girls and they were not into it. They're like, all we have to do is like flip our hair, fall down, do this. And I'm like, I don't want to do that.
That's always been the killer.
Yeah.
As much as I don't like it in gender matches, the problem is just the ratio of men to women involved in it. It's high, it's a little less skewed now, but it was probably about 20-1, if not more.
Right.
You know, and you really didn't have a lot of options.
Yep.
You know?
Now, you never worked with that person, whoever you thought maybe was that. You never worked with them
No.
again, right? Good. And I hope you never do.
Yeah.
You
No,
know,
I don't
make-
think
make
they
sure
wrestle
you tell them,
I don't
the
think they
promoter.
wrestle anymore.
Really?
No, I don't think they do.
Okay.
They were
Well, no
around very
offense if they were
briefly.
doing that in the ring to you. They weren't wrestling to begin with.
Exactly. You're right. And they're creeps that, you know what I mean, that are trying to cop a feel.
Yeah,
All right. So I'm trying to get, because we have a lot of other stuff
Yeah,
coming. I'm
let's get
probably not going to get through all the fan questions.
we'll
so
try.
how about Dave Delafontaine, who shares all my shows all the time. When did you
Destro.
first decide, did I say it right?
Yep. No, and Dave Destro's his ring name.
Oh, Dave Despres. Okay. When did you first decide you wanted to be a pro wrestler? What are your future goals? You already kind of said when you were little, you kind of knew you wanted to try it.
So I fell out of wrestling a bit when I was in high school. Like I was trying to watch it all the time, but in addition to the fall season, I didn't have a sport because I didn't want to get hurt before hockey. Like the athletic director tried to recruit me for volleyball or soccer, and I was just like, look, I'm not interested. I want to be there for hockey. And then for softball, I was on the varsity team all 4 years.
My son was the same way. Baseball, he didn't want to get hurt doing anything else.
Yeah, so it was like there were kids who would be all year athletes.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm good with these two.
Yep.
And I was also in a lot of honors classes, so the amount of homework I had plus practice.
Ooh, look at me, I'm smart.
Yeah, I know, right?
I was in a lot of
You're
honor
in between
classes.
two dummies right now.
Yeah,
To be fair, it was really only like English based and creative writing. I can't do math. I'm very bad at math. I can do like percentages and fractions, but give me like algebra and I'm like,
Yeah.
like the only reason I didn't take honors English senior year is the teacher was kind of like a bully and it picked on me. So I was like, I'm good working with you. I'll just go be in the normal English class, even though I was like, oh, why am I here? I got a call from this kid I knew who was debuting in WWE, and he's like, hey, you should come up to Manchester and watch my match. And I was like, okay, I haven't been into an indie show in years, but I did used to like wrestling. Sure, I'll go watch it. I watched it and I liked it. And like, I didn't realize that it was something that at the time was on public access in Manchester. And they used to have the episodes to download off their website. And I got up at one point and I'm filming it for him. And I like walked to the side of the camera, just like the guy who's doing the camera kind of looking at me like, cause they didn't say anything like before the show, like rules.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And like, you know, I jump into all these mid stories and I'm like, I have no idea who any of these guys are. And then all of a sudden I was like, I started going more and I was like, I kind of want to do this. I was an athlete. Like I haven't done anything since I graduated high school and sure, like let's try it.
Right.
And all of a sudden I really liked it.
That's
That was
cool.
kind of just how it started. Just one day, I was like, I'm gonna try this. I really like this, and then it just progressed. And like a lot of people hate that I say this, but I don't. I think my career is more towards the end than it is the beginning. And don't get me wrong, I respect every woman who can do this. But once I have kids, that's it.
Right.
I've wanted kids for so long, and but I want to be ready. Like, yeah, and he's
No, I can't. I don't want to tell an entire story and talk over you about. No, I'm going to tell it anyways.
Oh, no. Good.
So, my wife is actually here,
Yes.
watching this. So, because we have 2 children, and I'll try and make this as quick as possible. So, one night I was wrestling in Dover, New Hampshire, and I did a half-an-hour match with somebody, and I was supposed to go out in a battle royal later and like get thrown over the top rope by the kid I just beaten. Typical standard fare. Well, I started coughing when I got to the backstage, and I'm like, it'll pass. And I was in really, really good shape at that point. Well, 10 minutes later, I'm coughing up blood, and they're hauling me out of the place. I thought I'd broken a rib. What I had was walking pneumonia. Wow. So, of course, I'm a dummy. 2 weeks later, I'm back.
You're back in the ring.
I wrestled up in Conway, New Hampshire, did 2 matches, and I'm driving home, and I had a gallon of water, and I'm driving home, and I'm gunning water, and I feel kind of weird, and I realized after 2.5 hours of driving, I don't have to pee. So it turns out I got pulled over in Peterborough, New Hampshire on the way home, and they thought I was drunk, and the cop actually reached in, and they felt my head. I said, "You're burning up." And I made some excuse, like I was going to stop on the way home, So then I got home, and it was to the hospital. There was an ice bath involved, and that was how I missed my daughter's first birthday. So yeah, my wife made a rule.
No wrestling around on the
No
birthdays.
wrestling around the birthdays. Yep.
Smart, Dale. Very smart. So you want to have children someday. That's
and
good.
like there's tons of women I know, especially in wrestling, who have the kids and then they go right back. And I respect them. Just that's not something I want personally. Like I've been learning like behind the scenes production stuff. I edit shows and like I put stuff together on my own where I can learn to do, I can still be involved and do like the back end production stuff. I don't need to step in. I can't 100% say I'll never step in a ring again after I have kids. Maybe when they're older and they can be like, hey, you want to see mommy do something cool tonight? And go in and do something and be like, see, look, I told you I can do that.
Yeah. Well, that's
Look,
cool
kids,
because
watch mommy break a hip.
Exactly.
Right.
The one time I go in and again, it's like, ah.
but it is cool because there are other things you can do. You know what I mean? You could help, and you have friends that are running companies, so you can actually help them in all kinds of ways. So that's awesome. All right. So let's see. Greg Blanchard, best convention you've ever been to?
Anime Boston, hands down. It's the first one I've ever gone to. It's the one I look forward to every year. It is the one weekend out of the year that no matter what I've been offered booking-wise, I will turn it down for Anime Boston. I've never been offered anything major. Technically the Thursday I checked in the room, I was offered on one of the XWA Thursday throwdowns, but it was like a last minute, hey, Jose was like, I have control for 2 weeks. I want you guys to come in. It was like that Thursday. I was like, no. The following Thursday we went and we're both on the
Now
on my
Tony
own
goes
show.
to these and they just offered to tow his car away.
Now, do they come every year?
Yep, it's at the Heinz Convention Center every year, typically around Easter too. So usually on the Sunday of the convention when people are like checking out and whatnot, people will do Easter themed costumes. They'll throw bunny ears on. People in the community will go around and just make Easter eggs for each other. It's cute.
That is cool. All right, let's see. Before we get to Todd Graham's question, which everybody pretty much wants to know, I'm just trying to look over these real quick. All right, let's see. Dan Boley, who always is a good friend of mine. What do you think are the pros and cons of social media when it comes to the wrestling business? Great question.
That is a really good question because it kind of ties back to something we were saying earlier about like people accidentally grabbing or whatnot. Social media, it's one of those things where, and when I did an internship like teaching computering class at a high school, one of the things I said when I touched on social media was, when you write something, assume it's going to be read by like 4 other people. Because nowadays, no matter what you do, you can delete your post. Somebody's already screen capped it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's why Facebook pages like Creepbusters and You Buried Yourself now exist. They make a living off of, well, not even make a living because I'm sure it's like not a paid thing, but
no, I know what you're saying though.
Whatever you post, it lives forever. Like I've very rarely deleted a post. The post from earlier that misconstrued, that is a perfect example of something I have deleted. Most posts I leave up there, and if I say something, I know other people are gonna read it. Like even if there's maybe 2 people in this world that I trust, that if I say something to just them, like it's gonna stay between me and them, excluding family.
No, I understand.
So there's only 2 people in this world that I like trust 100,000% that they're not gonna open their mouth. But as a pro, it's a way to share stuff about shows without actually having to flyer. And I'm not saying replace flyering. I was out this weekend flyering for my show in Newton. But I learned recently, because someone asked in the Chop Shop roster group for that, like, a lot people who are on all the shows that run out of there, or even just a few, like, because I'm only on like a few of them. Why are people not flyering? Well, apparently there's like strict rules about flyering in Rhode Island. So that's why.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that
Rhode Island
either.
used to have a tough commission too at one point.
Yeah, and it was kind of like when WAW was like out of merch, like people were like, well, why aren't you got to tell people? It's like, well, putting up flyers kind of like, I was like advised by guys who had been there from the earlier point when they had an interaction with the commission, like back in like 2002, 2003, they were like, look, stay off our radar. Here's how you stay kind of hush hush, like kind of like gave a pass. And so like there are people I can share, like I may not know all the wrestlers in New England, but I'm part of the group. So it's like, hey, just so you know, this show's coming up if you want to come watch. Or hey, like, so for example, with the show we're doing in Newton, Sabu's doing a seminar before the show.
Why don't you plug that too after you talk about it?
Yeah, like it's like, here, hey guys, you want information? Here's how you go. And I don't need to know all of you to share. Like,
Absolutely.
Yeah, we as humans have like a very limited, like, we have 150 people we can kind of like handle as like a tribe. That's a weird word to use for it. But then on social media, there's thousands and thousands of people at any given point. I have fans who watch me from like Chicago and Colorado who I talk to like on occasion, but I'm like, how did you even find me? And they're like, YouTube. Oh.
Yep. I have a friend and a fan of the show from Finland.
Nice.
Talk to him all the time. It's so weird.
Generally, all of my fans were in cell blocks.
Yeah. All right. So let's plug your show because I think the last 17 minutes we're probably going to be talking about the other thing. So
yeah. Okay. So I've been running shows in Newton. It was part of originally under the WAW banner, and this is the first time running it without it, which is a little bittersweet, and I'll touch on that. Freight Train is facing like a legend of wrestling, especially in like the hardcore scene, Sabu, and he's bringing Super Genie to be there by his side. It is going to be a tables match, and that's the main event of the show. But like all my other Newton shows, they're all for charity.
Yep.
The Elks are very great and work with us. The pizza shop below, CNN Pizza, is great. They provide all the pizza for the show. Like, this hall like is generous to us, to say the least. The charity is called Misa on Wheels. It's for a girl named Amanda Knightley. She is a cosplayer in the New England area. She unfortunately suffers from a disease called Charcot-Marie tooth disease, and it actually has nothing to do with her teeth. What it is she is confined to a wheelchair. She hasn't been able to stand since she was about 10 years old. She has issue controlling the nerves in her arms at times. But despite that, she has never let that stop her.
Nice.
She has recently been teaching herself to skateboard, and she can't obviously stand on the skateboard, but she sits her legs a certain way, tapes her hands, and she uses herself to push and go up ramps. She goes around the Northeast area and wants to branch out more, going to conventions especially, because cosplay is supposed to be like wrestling. It's supposed to be such an inclusive community. Obviously, there are times where it's not.
Right, no, I
but
understand.
there are elitists in cosplay, just like there are in wrestling.
Right.
And she's not preaches, because I feel like that sounds like a negative connotation. She goes, your disability does not disable you.
Right.
Just because you may be confined to a wheelchair, just because if you have something mentally wrong with you, if you have like Down syndrome, just the sea of things that you could have that just make you a little bit different, not normal, because there's no such thing as normal.
Right.
And she goes around like talking in those kind of panels. But in order to get around more, she needs to rely on transportation. However, there's a company in New Hampshire that is willing to work with her to modify a vehicle to her exact specifications. It's like $100,000 that they're going to put into it in order to help her learn to drive and go for her test. But what's the not awesome part is she has to privately pay for the vehicle herself, and the vehicle is $50,000. Right. So she has a GoFundMe going on. So if you see the event on Facebook, even if you can't go, and that's kind of why, do you mind?
Yep. And no amount is too small on something like this. Really.
No. And one thing that I like developed, and I'm sure you guys have seen these things at like supermarkets, like you spend $1, $3, $5, and you just write your name on it. We're gonna have a big board on the show to like hang them up. Like, I've known this girl for a really long time. She actually went to school with some of the wrestlers that I know, and she's an absolute sweetheart, and like I want to help her like the best.
Right,
yep, that's in one of her cosplays. Like, I want to help her.
And I don't know that you could have
a
a better guy on the show. You're talking about a guy that had double hip surgery and is still wrestling.
He still wrestles.
Right, and he's not gonna. It's not like he's not just there for a signing. He's there to step in the ring.
Right.
And a lot of people don't know who Freight Train is, but Freight Train was primarily out of the Philadelphia area. That's where he grew up. That's where he trained. He's been in the business for 28 years.
Right.
And then he recently, just came up here, and I met him a few years ago, and he's been like a second dad to me. He's a great guy and like really cares about like this as well.
That's fantastic. I have a special needs stepdaughter. Nothing like her issues. Hers is a brain injury. And so anytime I see anybody doing something for something, whether it's special needs or something like with her, I love that stuff. So really, you're doing a great thing with that. Let's get right into this because we got about 14 minutes.
Enough of the positive stuff.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So we're going to talk about the WAW and all the stuff that's gone on in the last few days, which I really don't know. So what happened?
So, to not do too much detail, because I had some people advise me maybe you shouldn't talk about this. I have people who say you should talk.
I think you're smart enough to figure out what you need
I don't need to. There's a lot of people who still were either there, not there, whichever. I don't bear ill will to. It was really, there were people who started it 20-something years ago. Two guys who just started it, like some guys just started in their backyard. All of a sudden,
was it
grew.
Grayson Flax? Was one of the ones that started
he
it?
came in, I think, in like 2001. Like I didn't show up till like 2008.
Okay.
And that was kind of when influxes of people from different, because it was primarily just people who grew up together in Manchester.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Hey, let's rent a building. Let's put on a show. And it was like a roster of like 8, 9 people.
Right.
It was very tiny. And then it grew to what it is today, where people come from, like, I come from West Roxbury. There are people who come from Lowell. There are people who come from Berlin, like New Hampshire. And that's 2.5 hours north of Manchester.
That's a long ride.
And yeah, one of the biggest things that kind of got crap for is you guys pay to do it. You're supposed to get paid to be wrestlers. Like, yes, I understand that, but we don't have one person fronting $800 every month to pay for this building. And we put shows on weekly. It's not like a once a month thing.
Yeah.
So there was like years change. People grow up and move on with their life.
Right.
And the people who were in charge handed over their quote unquote ownership, because there was never any legal ownership. The company didn't legally exist. Handed it over. One guy was like, here's my half, gave it to this guy, Chris Shady, who actually had like worked on a Lobster Man show before. He was one of those people,
What's his name?
Chris Shady, like he went
know him, Al?
he went under FO at one point. It was like he and this guy Gino Diomedes worked the main event at a show in Roxbury.
Okay.
I don't remember the name,
Yeah.
but I mean, I've been hitting the head a lot over the years. So,
But I've gone to almost all Jeff shows and I don't remember. But
Yeah,
continue,
maybe it was
please.
either, but I know it was a show like in Roxbury because somebody else asked me about those guys recently, and I was like, well, one of them's off married trying to have kids, and the other one, I don't know whatever happened to him.
Right.
And so, you know, people move on with their lives, get married, have kids, and transfer things over. And then the guy Shady left. He was like, I want you, I was like leaving. There were issues happening and I was leaving. He's like, no, I want you to say, I want you to take this over, because I had been over the years stepping up and I had been editing stuff. I did the Newton shows and we were in the South Boston St. Patrick's Day Parade one year.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I heard that.
Yeah, we wrestled in Rhode Island and like all these things where I can't say I did it like solo.
Right.
Because, you know, there's obviously a team of wrestlers. I'm not the whole show. Like primarily I was usually somewhere towards the middle or the bottom of the show.
Right.
Like rarely was I ever like in the top of the show. There were occasions where I was, but that's, again, placement is subjective.
Right.
And what happened was there was one guy who primarily also was like in charge of the money, and his attitude was just horrible. It had been the issue for well over a year, and it's one of those things where you can only make excuses for someone so long.
Right.
And
I have a marriage that proves that wrong, by the way.
She's gonna hit you with
She's
gems
hearing
out there.
all of this.
Well, no, I'm the one that's going to cover for me. Sorry.
It's fine. No, it's fine. A little laughing is good to break up the
Yes.
tension. Because as much as like I'm not showing as much that I'm upset, it was like that was my home. That place, like I met some of the people that are the most important people in my life. I didn't meet them through there. One of them I did, but like my relationships with them grew through there. And if I didn't have them in my life now, I'd be like, I don't know what I'd be.
Right.
So well over a year, like we had people who were working like a TR per se, and they were called TR the bar. It was really cute. And then like people were like, well, this guy's like an owner, so how are we supposed to do anything about his attitude issues? Because we would tell him, we would discipline everyone else. Like if they were stepping out of line, we had one guy go off so much that someone's parents showed up like to like confront him, and we had to like, oh my God, you guys are all grown adults. This is ridiculous.
Right.
And we took him like out of like places on like the committee we had going. And it was all ego. And I couldn't understand it because he was not this way when I met him.
Right.
And it just kept going. And finally, I look at Flax one day and I'm like, Flax, like, come on, we need to talk to Shaz. He's not listening.
Yeah.
Like, you're his friend. Maybe he'll listen to you more than he'll listen to me, because he just sees me as the girl who like kind of came in out of nowhere, all of a sudden is in like a leadership position. I wasn't one of the originals. Like I haven't been around the whole time through all the struggles. I'm here. But it's like, all I wanted was to grow and get better, to fix the stigma. I fought with so many people in the independents being like, no, like we can be a good thing. Like we can be like a draw. And it was kind of fighting a battle I would never win. But it was like, we've like
You had a
produced.
tough time selling me on it, to be honest with you.
And that's perfectly fine. I mean, I obviously can't now, but
Right.
at the time, like, and like, people were like, well, you might not like Todd Sobel, but he was here. Sammy Lane started there like years and years and years ago.
Right.
But
I
like
did not know that.
the Middlesex Express.
I knew that.
Guy that worked for me, Cameron Blaze, I think his name
Oh,
was.
I remember him. He came from there too.
But he actually runs his own shows up in like the Lebanon area now and things of that nature. Yeah.
Right. And like you can have something maybe not be that great, but have people come through it and go off to do great things. Like again, like the Middlesex Express. Like it was hard to then all of a sudden be like, all right, we need to seriously have this meeting because we have people wanting, because we tried to do a lot of things democratically. Sometimes it didn't work out that way, and there was flip-flops on how do we do things? Does the committee handle things? Do the all handle things? And especially when it got to someone who was like the owner and he had the money. And I was like, all right, I go to Flax and I was like, we need to do something. We need to talk. And we got all the committee together one day, and the only two people on the committee we didn't tell were basically two people who were his best friends.
Okay.
And it was mainly because we couldn't trust to tell them.
Yeah.
So Flex and I, we sat down, we had all this talks. It's like 2 a.m. at this point, and we finally bring it up.
Right.
And it became, anytime you bring up an issue with anybody, it doesn't matter who it is.
Right.
Like a boss, a coworker, anybody. They're always going to be met with, no, I'm not like that. Like, you don't understand, like this and that. Maybe why are they not coming forward themselves? I was like, well, you kind of have a habit of if somebody does come forward themselves, you kind of message them and like you kind of say you're sorry, but you also make it seem like it's their fault. It's these people don't want to talk, so it's like Flax and I kind of had to be the voices.
Passive aggressive.
But like here, I was like, I printed out the screw. I told everybody, it's like, I'm screen capping this and I'm going to show it. I'll block your picture so they don't know. I mean, if people can decipher who you are by reading, I mean, I can't help with that. And I was very honest with everybody. I would tell them, like, I'm not going to lie. Like, and it seemed like it got through. And I was very happy. And it was one of those things where we wanted him to make the decision, step away for a bit on his own.
Yep.
And then I was like, look, it goes back to the people who had the problem. Be like, look, he willingly is making this choice to step away, to reassess his attitude and come back. Now, people can't go, well, now we can vote him out. It's like, no, he now gave a chance. Now, when he comes back, you guys have to give him that chance.
Right.
Next day happens, and it became a complete 180 over one not propping someone. Where the guy whose issue refused to prop one of the girls he had a problem with on a personal basis. And it wasn't just her coming to me telling this, it was 2 other like witnesses who watched him like go over, say hi to the other people and kind of just walk away from her.
Right.
I was like, all right, we tried to Flex said something nice to him, it just exploded.
Right.
Like in my face, screaming, exploded in front of everybody. It was just very awkward.
Right.
And at that point it became, what's happening? Like everything starts at the top and just cracks down the middle and it's gonna fall.
Right.
And we found out like there were people on the other side like, oh, we're gonna start a petition to remove all the people who do stuff. I realize money is important, but money is not everything. That's like a lesson in life. Money cannot replace hard work.
True.
Like you can pay all the dues in the world you want. That does not replace everything you put in, like the sleepless hours, like the countless hours. I'm not saying he didn't do those either, but it just, the unwillingness to accept when he was wrong was a problem. And then it was like his friends, and this is another life lesson. In my opinion, you can disagree with me. You're not a good friend if you don't hold your own friends accountable.
Okay. Yeah.
Like if I'm doing something wrong, like there was one of the guys who was in WWE and I will always respect him to the highest degree. No, I don't know what he thinks of me now. And his ring name was Inferno, and then he eventually transitioned to Freddie D. After there was one time where it was another bad interaction, again, another case of the guy's bad attitude. And he pulled me aside. He's like, hey, just so you know, that looks really unprofessional. Like, you're supposed to be a leader. You're supposed to be an owner. Like, that looks really unprofessional. I respected him like crazy. Like, thank you. And I made it a point to go up to him after, like, thank you for telling me that.
Right.
Like, I want people to come to me and tell me, hold me accountable. I don't care if you're my husband, my sister, best friend, anyone. If I do something wrong, tell me.
Yeah.
And if you're a friend who is not willing to see that your friends are doing something wrong and just try to do something to get other people removed from their spot so you can be the new spot.
Right.
That's not good for professional business. That's not good on a personal level. And then eventually the person who caused the problems with everybody else is going to cause that problem with you.
Oh, absolutely.
So it led to a divide where all of a sudden, like, again, like one of the guys was fighting with the booking team, like, oh, we should have our normal meeting like we always do. And they're like, well, we should get through this meeting because we got to decide what to do. And he's like, oh, well, because of him, we're a legal nonprofit. I'm like, I just had a phone call with Flex last night, and he told me like the paperwork was still at home. So I, just like court cases, police cases, all that, things like nonprofit information are publicly accessible information. Okay. So I was like, this could really mess up a lot of those people's lives. Like there are people in there who have kids, who have like houses and could be held accountable. Like we always make the joke that if they're survived in the future, it would be We Are Women, because all the guys, everyone has girls. There's basically no boys. Everyone has little girls.
Yep.
And I called and asked, and some woman picked up the phone, got really angry right off the bat. She's like, why are you asking? Are they trying to swindle money out of you? I'm like, what?
Right.
And it turns out somebody had made a call earlier in the week about the paperwork after she was like, I already knew about these people and I was kind of looking into them because I've never heard of them and I feel like the commission should be involved, but I heard that there's paperwork happening and I haven't seen anything yet. Somebody else called reporting them, so we're sending them a letter of how to get stuff in order. I would suggest you tell your friends to distance themselves. So now I'm like, so even if this all got resolved and the guy took time off, we tried to talk it out, no matter how much he likes to put all over Facebook, no, nobody ever tried to talk anything else. It's like, that's a lie.
Right.
And if you want to blindly support your friends into making that lie a reality, which is very possible. It's another, going back to the cons of social media.
Yeah.
You can have enough people post one thing. I hate the term, but it's fake news. There are people who share articles all the time that they're not real.
Right.
And no one takes the time to actually look into things. Look into both sides. I'm never going to say I was perfect because I'm not.
Right.
But it led to everyone now going, now the state's aware.
Yeah.
And everyone thinks that, the commission was called later. It's like, no, they already knew.
Yeah.
So one guy's ego not taking time off to show to everybody that he loves that company more than he loves being right.
Right.
And it's so unfortunate, and it still hurts. That was my home.
Right.
Like, I fought tooth and nail to protect that thing,
Yep.
and now walking away from it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I never thought I would walk away.
Right.
I thought everything would be able to be fixed. And now, to this day, just hearing how it's become, let's just turn this into a shoot show where they just shoot in promos all the time. Now it's like, my understanding is the commission, I don't know officially, because people who stayed, because they're staying to finish out a story or doing their own thing, I don't think they tell everyone else what's going on. And it's the same thing where I wish the people who had the problem with the guy in trouble, the guy who, if that goes, so many people would come back, it would be fixed.
Right.
There are people who literally sit next to him every week and will not, grow, thing I probably can't say because public access, tell him it's wrong, but tell everybody else.
Yeah.
And it hurts that this won't have them there.
Right.
But I need to not protect, but be with the locker room that supported me, who saw this isn't right anymore. We want to grow and progress. If you don't want to grow and progress with us and want to just become that club, if you want to become a booker and put the belt on yourself, which is the same thing you used to complain about, you guys go do that.
Right.
We're going to go do this. The original owners kind of reached out to us and no, we support you guys. Go take whatever stuff you have that's intellectually yours with you. Go. Let them go now work, and I think it's in a garage in Massachusetts, because Massachusetts lacks on laws.
Right. Well, you got emotional, and that's because you're real, though. It really meant something to you. Before we go up there, plug your show again real quick.
All right, so this is
I'll hold it up for you.
Saturday, September 14th in Newton, Massachusetts, having Sabu. There'll be a seminar happening for all skill levels of wrestlers from 3 to 5. I'll be sharing that event around the New England area. Charities Mise on Wheels. That's really all I have. I've never lied about anything.
Right.
I'm sure there's little white lies somewhere along the way, but when it comes to who I am as a wrestler, who I came from, and what basically destroyed my home, believe whatever side you want, but I know what's the truth.
Never lied, you're not cut out for wrestling.
Thank you for coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you so
really
much.
much appreciated. Mav, thanks for coming on again. Guys, we're out. We went over. Peace.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.